call this meeting of the Madison Select Board to order on Monday, November 15th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show Selectman Moody is absent. Consent agenda warrant number 13, 10, 18, 2021, number 14, 10, 18, 2021, and number 15, 10, 18, 2021, number 16, 10, 28, 2021, payroll register number 42, 10, 21, 2021, and number 43, 10, 28, 2021, and number 44, 11, 4, 2021.
Move to accept.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the warrants and payroll register as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We have a couple of games of chance.
Right, they were given to us last week from the American Legion, so this is for Tardif Belanger Post 39. They're two separate, but you can take them in one motion. One is for cribbage, and the other is for bingo.
All right. Mr. Gopi.
Make a motion, we sign them.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second to sign the game of chance for Tardif Belanger Post number 39, the American Legion.
Didn't we just do this?
No, it's a different one.
Not for these.
There's different games of chance.
Right, and this is for the full 2022 year.
Oh, 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Acceptance of the meeting minutes from October 18th, 2021.
Move to accept.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes of October 18th, 2021. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Old business. Mr. Manta?
None.
Mrs. Wyatt? Mr. Gopi?
None.
All right, items of communication. Mr. Town Manager?
Not a whole lot, other than tell you I won't be here next week. So I'll be off on vacation for the full week. I'll be back on the 29th.
All right, nice trip.
Thanks.
All right, new business. Number one, department head reports. We have the sheriff's report in our email, I believe. We have the fire chief's report. Any question on either of those? And we have the road commissioner here. Mr. Road Commissioner?
Yeah, we've gotten all the trucks ready for our winter agenda. We hired a gentleman last week, Tim, Tammy, and myself, and Jay. He will be starting in the coming week, so we have a full crew this year again this winter. The leaf pickup is going very well. We're in our third week. Hopefully, we'll have everything done by Thanksgiving or till the first snow flies. Any questions?
Plow this morning?
Nope.
No.
Close.
All right, number two, discuss.
Mr. Chairman, before you move on
Excuse
from
me.
department head reports, I just want to give an update on code enforcement. As you know, Amos Lishu has been performing code enforcement duties for us 2 days a week since September. He also took a job at the town of Winslow. So he started today, and he's doing 3 days a week in the town of Winslow. So he has committed to continue 2 days a week in Madison, 3 days a week in Winslow. But I'm not kidding myself. That Winslow job could turn into a full-time job, which means in this very difficult labor market, we could find ourselves looking again for a code officer. And it just goes to show how much demand there is, because we had two other municipalities ask if we could share this code officer before Winslow came in. So it's just the kind of the lay of the land out there as far as code officers. But so far he's doing a great job, and I hope we can keep him part-time.
Where does he live?
He lives in Waterville.
All right, number two, discuss fiscal year 22 policing model and budget with the sheriff's office.
So in
Welcome to
your
the sheriff, and chief deputy, and
This is our head of finance.
that's the finance guy. We gotta really welcome him.
He's the one that has all the money figures.
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Patrick over.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We have some extra handouts for tonight, but I can help you where we're at there. On the page, on the page is budget comparison. And then behind that budget comparison, I made my own patrol coverage model based on what the chief shared with me. So it's not what you guys would do, but it was the best way I could figure to kind of explain what coverage looks like. So I just want to direct your attention to the budget handouts that were in your packets. These are line items that Patrick puts together for the county, and by comparing what we're paying for right now in the 22 current budget, and the next column over is what the proposed budget would be. And just so everybody's on the same page, we're talking about changing a model. And the difference in that model would be what we've been doing for the last 5 years is hiring deputies that are dedicated to Madison full-time. And in previous discussions with the board and with the sheriff's office, we realized that that has always been a struggle of keeping a full complement of deputies dedicated to Madison for a variety of reasons, that they view that municipal job as the low rung and they itch to get out there and do something else, whether that's full county or state police or whatnot. Add that into the situation where everybody is short-staffed and everybody's looking for people. We have 2 openings right now in the Madison division, and unless anything's changed, we haven't had any qualified candidates apply for that.
I have not.
So that's the current model that we're paying for, and that total cost there on the second page is $481,000. The model that we're proposing after talking with the sheriff is a model where you take the resources that are available throughout the county, all the deputies, and assign 3 deputies to cover the 3 shifts in Madison on 2-week intervals. So the shifts are assigned at 2 weeks. So from the pool of deputies that are available in the county, their sergeant that was on duty would assign them to Madison, and that way those would be fully covered. That is initially a little bit more expensive. The cost associated with wages and employee benefits you see is significantly higher. That's mainly because rather than paying young deputies that may or may not be fully trained, what we've been doing in Madison, now you're taking an average of all the available deputies, their wide range of experience, salary, and benefits. So those costs are based on the average, which when you include a vehicle is about $140,000. That's what a fully encumbered deputy costs. So that raises that base level budget from $481,000 up to $553,000. And then you have to factor in the costs associated with a vehicle. Again, this has been talked about before. One of the perceived disadvantages of being a full-time Madison deputy is you don't get a take-home vehicle. All the other county deputies get a take-home vehicle. So if you add that cost into all that will be covering Madison will have a take-home vehicle, that adds about $60,000 to the budget. So if you're looking at the second page down there where the highlighted areas are, you can see our cost comparison. So from 481, we would be looking at a budget of 613. We do have some revenues that offset. The school district currently contributes $20,000 toward an SRO, a school resource officer, and that's included in both budgets. We do carry a contingency fund that runs around $30,000 for the sheriff. And we have in our funds right now about $40,000 that we would put toward a cruiser that could be put toward offsetting this budget. So the bottom line is this year currently we assess to the taxpayer $440,000 for policing out of that 481. With those numbers, including that money that we have for a cruiser, the total assessed to the taxpayer could be $523,000, a net increase of $83,500, so to speak. I've been told that these numbers are starting figures.
They should be pretty close,
and we
but
can-
we
we can
haven't
talk.
done this year's budget yet.
That's right. So I'm hoping that we would be able to reduce that number as far as the increase to the taxpayer through a variety of reasons. Maybe we can tighten up some of these numbers here. Maybe we can appeal to the school. Even though it is the same pocket of money you're taking, you could appeal to the school to pay a little bit more for that school resource officer. So that is what I had to present. So, anything I missed?
Well, sure.
No, he captured it well. I asked Mr. Dolan here tonight he knows the hard figures. Again, we haven't started the budget process. This is a conversation of, as it articulated in the minutes, that a change of model. I think it would give us a better coverage, and we wouldn't always be looking for a replacement deputy.
Well, I'm a strong proponent of the SRO and the model of having police in the community, more than just driving their car. I mean, we've talked about this before, more than just driving their car, getting out of their car and having a conversation with not just the people who are in trouble all the time, but the people who are, paying their taxes, I guess. And sort of a community type policing model. And the only way we're going to do it with this kind of model is to keep this SRO going. And I don't see any reason why we have to ask the town school for any more. It comes out of the same pocket. I mean, we're doing the same thing. But I think that's a really important part of this, because maybe I'm naive, but I felt we had our 5 deputies or 4 deputies. We got a little bit more people talking to people and doing things like that. I don't see that as much anymore outside of the SRO. So, I mean, I think that's important. I think it's important for people to see that, not just the patrol and the picking them up for speeding and that kind of stuff. I think it's important for us to have that communication, I guess. So that's kind of where I stand on that. I'm going to trust the sheriff that we can make this work. We'll see. Hopefully, we're not talking about another model in another year or so, but we will see. Mr. Gopian.
Yes, I like that, the SRO person, I think she does a real good job.
Right.
And,
Remember, we need to just positions, basically.
right, I think it's great for the kids. I know I have a granddaughter down there and, well, 2, and a couple grandsons, and they love it down there and they like her.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to start off.
I agree with you.
The other thing is, you talked about putting the offices in Madison, want to be Madison. Did I hear you right on that, or?
My understanding is that officers will be assigned Madison,
Okay,
or deputies will be assigned.
right. Isn't it because they want to be here, it's because,
So it'll be a traditional model of, so we have a shift sergeant on every shift
Right.
now, right? And so their responsibility is to orchestrate the activities of the night. So for like a 2-week period, the sergeant will say, Deputy X, you're assigned to Madison. And so their primary responsibility will be in Madison.
okay. And then they'll be taking the Madison cruises home. Is that-
They're going to be assigned. They'll be assigned a car. So what happens is that so you might have the car that Madison pays for goes home. You'll have a deputy that is on a county vehicle in the town, right? So it's kind of a wash that way. because you will get the mileage of the county vehicle patrolling in the town. We also are having a hard time recruiting young men and women that want to be police officers, qualified young men and women.
If we go to this model, the police cruisers will be purchased by the county. You're paying I guess a fee for the vehicles, but they'll be purchased by the county, and they'll be, I would assume, going to have the county on the side, not the Madison Police Department. But they'll be take-home vehicles for the patrol officers that will be patrolling for Madison.
I was just curious, will the SRO be different every 2 weeks, or will it be
No,
something
the
the same?
SRO,
the same?
so that's a specially trained position, and has had advanced training in school resource officer duties. So that is a defined position, so that would always remain the same.
Just an observation that you get into cold weather and after years of going to work at midnight, boy, after 11 o'clock, there's nobody out there. You don't see people until around 3, the people delivering mail, and then after that, it's a truck drivers going to work, but it's only an observation from myself.
Right, so there's always somebody on call. There is that way in the county. There's active patrolling and passive patrolling, and those off hours saves the taxpayer money, because we do what is called on-call time. So they have to be prepared to go, a phone call, and they have to go.
No, I was just, my thoughts was that if you needed to cut anywhere, maybe that time of night would be the time to do it, especially in the colder weather.
Right.
I'm not gonna make anybody's schedule up.
All right, we want to vote or?
Well, I want to make a couple of comments, just so the public has an opportunity to hear it, because I know that the question probably is out there in the public of, okay, if we're changing the models, then what would it take for the town to go back to having its own policing? And so I think there's a couple of challenges there. One of the benefits of the sheriff's model is the sheriff has assumed all the leadership of a chief, including not only himself, but also his staff. If we were to go back to an individual model, we would have to figure in, I would say probably safely, $100,000 in addition to what we have here to hire a chief. And then there's the current makeup of our labor market. Do we really think we could hire a chief and 4 officers in this current market? And so if you have an opportunity and you're talking to people about that, those are the 2 factors that I would say make it very difficult for us to move back to a municipal model. So that's just one comment I wanted to make. The other comment, just from a budgeting perspective, is over the last 5 years, because we've never been able to have a full staff, so we have budgeted $480-some thousand to be fully staffed, and I don't think maybe but for a few months out of the last 5 years were we fully staffed, because people were always coming and going. As a result of that, whatever we've paid the county, if the actual costs were less than what we paid, they reimbursed us back. And so you probably have experienced, allocating those funds when they come back, and that's what we've used to pay for vehicles over the last 5 years, is the savings that we got from the county. So keep in mind, if we go to this new model where all the shifts are filled, we are now at a full staffing model. And so the savings will no longer be as significant as they were in the past, if at all. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So those are my comments or thoughts.
And will we continue to buy the cruiser?
That'll be part of the budget that's created every year by the county, and whatever we raise from taxation and a few other areas, that'll cover that cost of a cruiser every year.
But we won't have any breaks like we have now where we get a reimbursement for it.
That's correct. So that's gonna be a cost that is gonna go up and stay up. over the next years.
And this contingency fund and the cruiser fund are gonna be gone after this year.
Probably. I'm sure Tammy can find some money somewhere, but it won't be as easy as it has in the past.
Alright. So I guess our motion, if we're gonna have one, is that it needs to be, to adopt the new model as proposed by the sheriff.
So before we do that, I had a question for the finance and the day-to-day folks. I think we had talked somewhere along the line about the possibility of moving to this model in the middle of this current budget year to see how it plays out.
That was one of our discussions. We've met several times, and I know that you are very concerned about saving, being the most efficient or effective you can with Madison's money, and you had indicated that you'd like to try it, and we would try to. We're going to do what you would like to do, try to get that accomplished.
So I guess I want to know how that is going to look. Right now, you're having difficulty filling every shift, regardless, countywide. If we were to say January 1st, let's enact this model, then would you be able to start assigning those shifts to Madison as of January 1st? Yes. Okay. So that would make the coverage a little bit different than it is right now. And you should be getting a couple deputies back from the academy by January.
Well, we know that Deputy Smith is graduating on tentatively scheduled December 15th. I have been right now the deputy Hvac, who is assigned to MDA. I took him out of MDA to fill the Madison, so he would go back to MDA. But the chief uses several platforms to look for people that are interested in police work, and we've had we lost one candidate who came from another department, and we didn't have an opening yet in the rural division, but he didn't want to work in Madison. But a fully trained guy would have been willing to come had we had this model in place right now.
So I guess the recommendation would be, if you wanted to take action tonight, is to vote to enact this model as of January 1st. I believe, based on some of the savings that we've had year to date by having these two open positions, we should have enough money to cover that. But we wouldn't be buying a vehicle right away.
Well, we have to discuss that also, because you own your current vehicles.
Right.
Those vehicles would have to be basically signed over or sold.
So right now, we have a vehicle coming, because of supply chain, that was ordered in July, and there still isn't a delivery date yet.
So originally we talked about waiting, have this meeting tonight, talk it through, and then wait until December or January before we voted. I'm not inclined to starting this in January. If we want to start this, I think it's got to be July, and I think the people have to vote. I mean, I'm not sure what we do if the people say no, they don't want this model, or they're not going to appropriate that much money to do it. I'm not sure where we go then, but I think we need to at least give them the option of what they're looking at. Does anybody disagree? I mean,
I agree.
Mr. Gope?
The only concern I was thinking about this was you said January, because we have everything from July to January, and then if we ran it for even a couple months, I'd like to see what the cost would be. I mean, I don't know if it's something we can do.
If I'm understanding, there's two different tracks here. If the board says we're going to include these final numbers in the budget and then bring the budget to town meeting, and then if town meeting approves it, then we're going to start the model July 1st.
I would like to see it that way.
So if that's the way you're going, then we couldn't do what you're
Right.
doing. But I understand, and actually I'm in favor of trying it for a few months for two reasons. One, you get to see what the real costs are, and two, we get more coverage. Because right now, we'll run through the rest of June with just 2 deputies.
That's the only concern I have, but outside that, doesn't matter to me.
All right, so I just assume if we waited till December to make a decision, and then we can, you can get the things ironed out with the cruisers
Yeah.
and the, what our exact cost is gonna be here, or as close as we can get to it. And then we can make that first meeting in December, and we'll make that decision, and then we'll move forward. And then if we decide, maybe March and April or something like that, or February and March, we could try it. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Everybody good?
Does that sound feasible?
Yeah, I mean, and we can talk about this later, but when that car finally comes, Madison will have its 4 cars. Now, the decision that the board will have to make will be whether we use that oldest car to trade in, or we keep that car at that point.
The new car that's coming, is it an Explorer?
Yes.
Okay. But in the future, you're gonna change to Tahoes?
Yes.
Change
A
to
police style.
Chevy
car.
Tahoe.
Tahoe?
Mr. Moody could get a good deal on his, and he could sell it to the sheriff's office.
Nobody wants to drive those. That should be a reason to bring you, become an officer.
All right, so we'll put it on for the first meeting in December and take a vote. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Chief Deputies.
Quick, the December vote is just for the numbers won't be finalized by then?
No.
Okay.
My understanding is the vote in December is to accept this model and then prepare the budget numbers to bring to town meeting.
We should have good figures by the end of February
Right.
for this year's plan that we could present to you guys.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, number 3, discuss financial agreements between the town of Madison and Go Lab, a direct agreement.
All right.
Want to do these one at a time?
Yes, yep. And I'm hoping that everybody has had an opportunity to look these over. Thank you to the folks from the sheriff's office and the county. This could be a little tedious. Now's your time to get out.
Been kicked out of there. Have a good evening, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yep,
Sheriff.
see you, Sheriff.
So I believe in your mailboxes at the office, I did put together copies of all these agreements. And so let me just give you a little background. Back in, I believe, September, we talked about this in general, that Go Labs was heading into this financing agreement. And in order to do that, they wanted to clarify some of the arrangements between the town and Go Lab. And if you saw the email I sent out today, the bond that Go Lab has been working on for months has been finalized, and it's out in the market. I'm not going to pretend I understand what all that means, but I understand that now the bond is out there for $85 million. The Finance Authority of Maine is involved, and a group called Citigroup is facilitating it. That means, hopefully, that by the first part of December, Go Lab should have the money they need to get Chimbro started. Chimbro has been contracted by Go Lab to do the work at the mill site to get that mill site ready to receive its equipment and actually install the equipment. And that hopefully will be going on all winter, so they can be ready to start production in the spring. So I think we're getting closer. I wish I could say we had a definite on that, but we are definitely getting closer in this process. One of the things that they've asked the town to do is to clarify in all these documents that have been looked at by their lawyers and have been looked at by the town's lawyer, Ken Lexier. I think I included Ken's notes in your packets for talking about this. So the first one, if there's no other questions or comments at this point, the first one is the direct agreement. And basically what that direct agreement says is that because Citigroup is facilitating this process, they will have first position on all the property and the equipment at the mill. Currently, the town of Madison doesn't have any position anyhow, but this is an agreement that GoLab says they understand, the town of Madison says they understand, Citigroup will have first position. So there is in this document here that I have, the originals.
Can I?
Oh,
Yeah, on this first permission, that means if they go belly up, they get what they want, then we can step in after that.
well, we don't have any, with the exception of a $400,000 loan that we'll get to. This
And
gives,
in the boiler, in the,
we'll get to that, okay. So this gives Citigroup the first position on all $85 million worth of property and equipment and so forth that's connected with this bond. And so the only situation where the town of Madison would be out money is the $100,000 of TIF that we included in our loan 2 years ago. So we don't get any money back for anything because what we've expended is 90% grants. So, any other questions on this, the direct agreement?
Just to take a motion to,
oh,
Mr. Gopi?
yeah, who appointed this firm from, Delaware? Who picked these people up?
We didn't have anything to do with it, so it was
GoLab.
GoLab.
So we're GoLab of Madison, Maine, and they're GoLab?
Right, a lot of it has to do with LLCs
Right.
and tax exempt
Right,
status
yeah.
and so forth. That's why they've created these other companies. That's my understanding.
I
Yeah.
just don't wanna be too far down the chain, that's all.
Well, again, the only position that the town would have any interest in is the loan,
Right.
so.
All right, so we need a motion to accept the direct agreement.
I have a
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mender.
Maine Finance Authority, what is their role in this?
They are really just a conduit through which these bonds go out to the market.
They will have no hold on
Right.
anything.
So that's a good question. 2 years ago, when the town was offering this loan of $400,000, there were several other entities like the Finance Authority of Maine, like Maine Rural Development Authority. All these entities gave loans and grants to GoLab. Now, they were small, so that they only totaled up to about $2.5 million. Once this bond is complete, then they will start the process of paying all those others off and making Fame whole. So Fame only has a $500,000 interest in the property right now.
Because that was one of my concerns was that if they ended up bankrupt and Maine had a hold on it, then it would be tax exempt.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I shouldn't say right, I don't
Possibly.
believe that. Right.
possibly.
But the way I read this and the way Ken Lexier read this direct agreement, if they go bankrupt, then Citigroup, which is a for-profit company, they would retain ownership of it. So what I need for a motion from the board is just a motion to accept the direct agreement and authorize me to sign, because there's only one signature on this one.
All right. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept and let Tim sign it.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to accept the direct agreement from GoLab and to allow town manager to sign. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, motion carries. Letter B, equipment lease, boiler.
All right, some of you have seen, I think, the picture of the boiler that we purchased, the town of Madison purchased this with a grant from the federal government. And it has been shipped and delivered. It's not installed to my knowledge. My guess is that's part of the Chimbro work, that they'll install this boiler on site. Since this was funded with a grant from the federal government requires that the town of Madison retain ownership of it. So we will retain ownership of it and lease it to GoLab. Going back and forth with the folks at GoLab, there's several different ways you can do a lease. Sometimes you can just do a $1 lease for 10 years. In this case, GoLab offered to pay us money over a period of time to offset some of our costs associated with it. We have to add it to our insurance. There is time and effort that both Tammy and myself put into facilitating these grants and making sure all things are documented properly and doing all the reporting that's associated with it. So GoLabs and I agreed on a figure of $70,000 over 7 years. So that is what GoLabs will pay to lease this boiler. We, on our side, will also depreciate the value of that boiler down under $5,000. When it gets down under $5,000, the federal government releases their interest in it. So that's what's happening over that 7-year period with this boiler lease. Outside of this lease, it's still a piece of equipment that is used to manufacture, so it'll be eligible for personal property tax. Part of the lease states that it's eligible for taxes. Taxes aren't assumed in the lease process. So that is the 7-year boiler lease.
Samantha.
Right, nothing to do with the boiler, but until I came in to talk to you, I didn't understand the amount of work they had to do before they can become operational. Is there any projected date when they might produce?
If they get their equipment in, they can be producing they're gonna be producing 3 different products. They can be producing the easiest product first within 6 to 8 months. So that's why they're looking spring, summer of '22. One of the things I reached out to GoLab today, because I knew this question comes up, because we all get asked this question every day, because it doesn't seem like everything's happening down there. My 2 answers to that are, this is the closest we've been since they bought it to getting the financing that they need, and we've had a year of COVID in between all of that. Number 2, $15 million has already gone into that site. You just can't see it. So when people drive by and say nothing's happened, we can show you the receipts that GoLab has already spent $15 million in that site. A lot of the work that's done in there has been removing all the scrap metal, removing everything, and pouring new concrete. And that's been done with fits and starts. With Chimbro ready to go, my guess is that will ramp up a lot faster.
Great, thank you.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to authorize an equipment lease on the boiler
So
for $70,000 for
Well-
7 years.
I would just say a motion to agree to the terms of a 7-year lease with GoLab for the boiler.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the equipment lease of the boiler. Hold on.
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second to approve the equipment lease of the boiler for 7 years for GoLab. Mr. Gopin.
Yes, now, when this is up and running and everything, and the 7 years has gone by, then they're gonna buy it for $1, right?
Correct.
And then they're gonna have payments, we're gonna collect money for like 17,500, is that right?
17,500 over the course of the 7 years, then they buy it for $1.
So they're gonna be paying all your expenses, Tammy's,
Right.
anything that we accumulate, they're gonna pay for that, out of that 17,500.
That's what we agreed to, that 17,500 a year for 4 years, out of that 7-year lease.
Okay.
So,
All right, all in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
this
All right, let us see equipment
this one
lease.
does have a signature page. Actually, the rest of them will have signature pages.
Let us see, equipment lease HVAC.
So this is very similar, other than the fact that the equipment is for heating, air conditioning, air compression, fire suppression. And this is part of a lease, this is part of a grant that we have received funding for up to $1 million, but we have not purchased any of this equipment yet. We've been working back and forth, and this is a lot toward that time and energy that our staff has spent, especially Tammy, working back and forth with the grantor on this. So this states that once this equipment is in place, This will be a 10-year lease. The depreciation factor will be the same idea. The federal government will have a hold on this equipment until it's depreciated to a certain point, then they release their hold. Go Labs is willing to pay $208,000 over the course of a 10-year lease. And I, just in the last one, have the option to buy it for $1 at the end of the lease. So everything else, the language in this lease is pretty much identical to the boiler lease, other than the fact that it's 10 years and a total amount of money of $208,050.
All right, looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the equipment lease for the HVAC, 10-year.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the equipment lease for HVAC for a 10-year period. Any questions, Mr. Gopian?
Yes, we're gonna get another 7,000 for leasing it or renting it out to them.
This is $7,000 over several years, plus $160,000 that they're gonna pay us up front. So the total amount is $208,000, but that includes the $7,000
It
paid.
includes it?
Yeah. So the total amount over the 10-year lease that Go Labs will pay to us is $208,000.
All right, seeing no other questions, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Note and security cancellation agreement.
All right, this goes back to the loan that the town made back in 2019. That was a $400,000 note. $100,000 came from TIF, $300,000 came from CDBG grant. And when we put that loan together, we realized that there was not a whole lot we could collateralize because we were using that money to pay for engineering, help them pay for engineering. They've spent over $2 million just on engineering in the last 2 years. This $400,000 that the town loaned to them was part of that. And part of our initial agreement said that we would have access, the town of Madison would have access to the engineering drawings, the engineering information. The company that Go Labs used, named Stantec, has been very good to work with. They have sent us all sorts of drawings and all sorts of information that we've kept in a little file at the town office. And so we have as much of that collateral as we could possibly get, and it's going to be available to us in the future. Citigroup is trying to eliminate all collateral from anybody as they are consolidating this $85 million bond. So they've asked us to release the collateral or release that part of the original note that was made back in 2019. So that cancellation agreement is just simply to do that, just simply to remove that collateral from the loan. And they are going to provide a substitute note, which is the next one.
All right, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second.
A second.
I have a motion and a second on note and security cancellation agreement with, not Go Lab?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go Lab, okay. Mr. Gopian?
Yes, so this $100,000 what we let the Go Lab use, it's gonna go from, it was supposed to start in August of 21, right? Last August.
They were supposed to start making interest payments.
And they haven't done it.
No, because they've been waiting to change this language.
Okay, so the language is gonna change. It will go all the way up now to, at least everything they start, they're starting everything in 2024.
Right.
And they're gonna run it to 28 apparently. And then in August of 28, they're going to have everything paid off.
They're gonna pay it in a balloon note, so whatever's left to pay, they'll pay in one payment in 2028.
And, but the only payments that we're gonna pay right now is the interest and just interest, right?
Right. Interest until 24, and then from 24 to 28, they'll pay interest and principal.
So when they start in 24, they're going to just pay interest, correct?
Nope, they're gonna start paying interest right now,
All right.
as soon as this is all finalized.
Mhm.
And then they'll pay interest only from now until August of '24, and then they'll pay principal and interest payments from August '24 till '28, and then whatever's left over on August 30th of '28, they'll pay in one balloon payment.
And they're gonna start making their product in 22, correct?
That is the plan.
So all this probably adds up to what, $2 million?
I'm sorry.
All this paperwork right here, all this stuff we're talking about $2 million.
Yeah,
And out of that, we get 100,000, right?
we'll get $400,000 back plus interest if they pay the whole loan back. And
Okay,
that $400,000 that they pay us back, we don't have to give back to the federal government. We would keep that and we could use it for economic development purposes.
okay, so this is gonna start paying just interest now, which isn't any, it's some money, but
It's
it's not a
some,
whole
right.
lot. Yeah, and in 28, we should be done with Go Lab altogether.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making sure I'm reading this so I understand.
You're right. So just a point of clarification, the motion that's on the table right now is just for the cancellation agreement. What Mr. Gopian just went over is the next motion for the replacement loan.
All right, all those in favor? All in favor? Motion carries. Letter E, the note, 400,000.
So I think Mr. Gopian did a very good job of outlining the changes that are in that note. And so as he said, interest only starting now till '24, interest and principal '24 to '28, and a balloon note in '28. The original loan that the board at that time in 2019 authorized would have had a balloon note in 2026. So they are pushing out that balloon note 2 years. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody's clear on that.
So the town put up the 100,000 for the match to the
300,
300,000.
yeah.
So we are expecting to get back, as Mr. Gopian said, $400,000
Plus some interest.
plus interest on that.
Right.
So,
But the only thing, we'll be getting interest slowly, starting now, right?
Correct.
Or as soon as we finalize it.
Correct.
all right, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
okay, that we approve the note with the new condition.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the note with the new conditions applied. Any questions?
The only, I did too much reading. Tammy called me over early to get my paperwork to look this over.
I bet she did to her.
Good job.
So all this, here it says they're gonna start September 30th, 2024.
We'll start. Start
To
paying?
start the payment, yeah, on the principal and the
And
interest.
interest, right.
Okay. The thing that gets me, I have a problem because it started in 19 and they really don't get to pay until 24, 5 years of,
Right, so the original note, which I don't think you were a part of because you weren't on the board
No.
then, the original note had 2 years of no payments at all.
right.
And so that's essentially what we've been through the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So instead of extending that out with no payments, they said, okay, we'll start the interest only now. So it's interest only for 3 years and then interest and principal until 2024. So you have to wait, you have to take minimal payments for the first 3 years before you start getting some, more serious payments.
I wish a bank would do that. Right?
Some of them do.
All right, seeing no other questions, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. And a contribution letter.
All right, this actually gets back to something else Mr. Gopian said, the total amount. So I know that you're gonna see the number 400,000 twice and it's gonna confuse you. Because not only did we offer a loan for $400,000, we also received a grant for $400,000 from the Maine, Maine Development Foundation. No, that's not it. No.
Community block,
No.
development.
No, MRDA, Maine Rural, no.
No.
Yes, Maine Rural Development Authority, that's it. So, that was used to tear down the specialty minerals building. So that was a $400,000 grant. Then there was a $250,000 grant that went toward the boiler. And they're putting down here $800,000 for the HVAC equipment. That's our portion of that $1 million grant from Northern Borders. So the purpose of this letter, to my understanding from their lawyers, is they want to acknowledge that this money was a contribution from the federal government through the town to Go Labs. And so they can account for it that way in their taxes. So we're not expecting this money back, and the federal government's not expecting it back.
All right, looking for a motion.
Motion to accept.
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second to accept the contribution letter. Any other questions? All those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, so hopefully Chimro will be working in December.
I hope so, and that was the indication I received today, so that's encouraging.
All right, number 4, discuss authorization to sign off site catering and liquor licenses.
So we had discussed this previously, and we've run into this situation on at least one occasion where someone that has a catering license and a liquor license may want to offer off-site catering at an event like a wedding, and they have to have authorization from the town, and in many cases that event might happen between meetings, and so they may not have time to get their application in. So I checked with the town of Skowhegan, and they do something similar where they authorize the town manager and or the town clerk to sign on the select board's behalf for just these catering off-site permit events. I want to stress here, this doesn't have anything to do with liquor licenses. So the establishments in the area that have to have a liquor license still have to come before the board, and so it's incumbent on them to get their paperwork ready. But in the off chance that there's an off-site event going on, this would allow a little bit more flexibility where the town manager or the town clerk could sign on those.
Because you could have somebody from out of town who is
In many
doing
cases,
doing the
they come
event.
from Waterville or out of state or something like that. So essentially, in your packets, I put a copy of the authorization, which simply reads, regarding approval of an application for a catering event, the Madison Select Board hereby authorizes the town manager and or the town clerk to sign on their behalf. This authorization applies only to application for catering permit. All other municipal approvals for liquor licenses require signed select board approval at a publicly held meeting.
All right, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we authorize a town manager and town clerk to approve these functions.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to have the town manager and town clerk to sign off on for off-site catering and liquor licenses. Any other questions? Mr. Gopi, nothing?
Nothing.
Okay, all those in favor? All in favor, motion carries.
Almost like he was picking on you.
All right, number 5, the review audited financial statements of fiscal year 21.
So we got the completed audit back. We have a couple of bound copies. We opted not to get too many of them. They are available by PDF. Of course, there's going to be a link to one on our website. But if you want a bound copy to read, to help fall asleep at night, you're welcome to have one. This one's the biggest one I've ever seen. I was joking with Tammy. I found the audit from 1984 down in the vault, and the audit from 1984 was 16 pages long. This is 102. And it's just every year the rules change for accountants, and they have to put so much more stuff in. In your packets, I put Tammy goes over the audit line by line, God bless her. And I go over the audit and look at a couple of highlights, pass them on to you, what I think is substantial. So in your packets are pages 9, 10, 11, and 12, which primarily I look at unassigned fund balance. This is what the board can bring to town meeting to say, we want to pull X amount of dollars out of undesignated fund balance to offset taxes. That allows us as a town to do more things and use the fund balance rather than raising more from taxation. So you can see that in 2020, we had a fund balance of 1.6 million. At the end of 21, we have a fund balance of 2.1 million. So we added $500,000 to our fund balance. How did we do that? If you remember, we didn't bring any money forward during COVID because we were very concerned that we wouldn't have the revenues coming in. Now that looking back hindsight, the revenues came in stronger than we expected, and we didn't pull that money ahead for the budget. So what's good is in the budget that we're in right now, we are using $400,000 from fund balance, but I believe we'll have the revenues to cover that, so that by the time we get to the time to go to town meeting, you'll have a healthy amount of money that you could pull forward to offset taxes if you chose to do so. So to me, that's a good sign. It reflects what I hoped would be the case.
They recommend the unassigned fund balance. 2 months, 3 months of bills, or?
I've always tried to use about 20%, which is about a little less than 3 months. So 20% of your operating expenses.
And how much is that?
Well,
So,
Mr. Gopi, you got questions tonight?
it's tricky because part of our operating expenses are to raise taxes for the school. And the school also has a fund balance. So he's not here anymore, but with Patrick Dolan's help, we created this little sheet that takes the school's fund balance from their audit and our fund balance and blends them together with the overall budgets of both. And that's what keeps us at that 2 months or 2.5 months supply. What that number is right now, I don't know. But we track it. So that's it for my highlights. I'm sure there's other things you do have questions in regards to the audit. I think overall, I thank Tammy and the work that she put into it, and I think it's always a challenge every year, but maybe this year was a better challenge. I don't know how you want to say it.
Any questions on the warrant? Excuse me, no. Audit, sorry, wrong word. Any questions? All right, seeing none, we will look at the Selectmen's concerns. Mr. Manton.
No,
Go ahead.
I have nothing.
Mr. Gopi?
yeah, the only one I had, a couple meetings ago, you made something about COVID and paying the people, COVID, you know, for powers showing up.
Yeah, the hazard pay is what they call it.
Okay,
from the
hazard
ARPA,
pay.
yep.
Have you done that yet?
We have not completed it yet. In fact, we haven't paid out any.
Okay.
I have been talking with department heads, and our initial intention was to pay it out as kind of a Christmas end of the year type bonus. But we haven't paid out any yet.
Okay, so you're not gonna discuss it until next month, probably, December or something?
Well, we probably do need to bring it back to the board because the board authorized a certain amount, and we, based on talking to the department heads, we may make some recommendations to change those amounts. So we'll bring those back.
Maybe in November.
Maybe the 29th.
29th,
Yeah. I don't want to pay those second week of December, right? We're gonna get them all? Or do you want to wait till the end of December?
We probably should discuss it at the 29th.
Good. Now, is that, and one of my concerns, should we bring up in that meeting
what has happened with Anson? And
We probably should.
what has happened, some of you haven't heard that or seen that article. Anson is paying, I believe, $37,000 to the ambulance workers to divide up between, I believe there's 37 workers at the ambulance service. And then they're paying, I think, pretty close to equal to their firefighters. So we have to decide if we're gonna help out with this, what they're giving to the ambulance service. So I believe they're around 72,000 altogether, correct?
That was what was in the article, right?
Yeah. So we have to decide if we're gonna basically help them out with that. They didn't ask for it, and they didn't include us, so that's gonna be up to us to talk about. We have already accounted for our firefighters in there, correct?
We have in our initial discussions, and this may change that a little bit.
Did they include stocks?
Starks, in talking to George, he said Starks is gonna talk about it for their next one, I believe, and Emden is also gonna talk about it for the next one.
All this money, how was it determined that we get X amount and Anson gets X amount? Is it like per capita?
Right, a lot of it has to do on your population and your valuation.
Alright, no other concerns, any citizens' concerns? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Before we do that, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
I just want to commend Tim and Tammy and Jeff and the staff over at the office for getting us through this. And the results look pretty darn good, I think, considering what we've all been through the last couple of years. So, thank you very much.
Yes, very good. Alright, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Alright, we got a motion and a second to adjourn, all those in favor? We are adjourned at 7:30, all in favor?